Hey now, welcome to Random Movie Club. I'm your host, Rob Logan. In each episode, I sit down with a co-host to discuss any movie of their choosing. The only qualification is that the movie is available to watch at home on DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming. Before you listen to this show, I highly recommend that you watch the movie we're going to talk about, because we're going to spoil everything. Also, at the end of the episode, I'll tell you which movie we're going to discuss next so you have enough time to watch it. If you enjoy Random Movie Club, you can help keep it going by supporting us on Patreon. Supporters get special benefits like bonus episodes, patron-only movie events, giveaways, and more. Show your support for Random Movie Club and the Geek Generation by visiting our Patreon campaign at thegeekgeneration.com/support. On this episode, I'll be discussing Star Wars: Return of the Jedi with Misty, aka Imperialgrrl. Let's roll the film. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi was released in 1983 from director Richard Martin. Written by George Lucas and Lawrence Kasdan, the film stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher. So normally I would ask my co-host why they chose the movie that they chose, but I had actually asked you to come on to talk about Return of the Jedi. So can you tell me a little bit? I know Star Wars is an important part of your life. Can you tell me a little bit about that, why it plays such an important role?
So, as my mom likes to remind me, she was in this story too. But I only remember my dad when I was almost 4 years old. In 1977, my parents took me to see Star Wars. And so I saw it not on opening day, but when it was actually first out in the theater. Mm-hmm. And it was always a thing. Like, I loved it from the first moment I don't even remember seeing it. I just always remember loving it.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember burying, there's a sandbox somewhere in Wakefield, Rhode Island, that has a treasure of Star Wars figures in it that I buried when I was 4 years old. So I had the Leia with the plastic cape and the Darth Vader and the Luke with the lightsabers, and it was gone. So after that, I've never missed an opening day since I started.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So, and I've seen them all in the theater with my dad.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we had to find a home theater to watch The Last Jedi.
Sure.
Because now that I live in Colorado, we used to live, we lived together in Boston, and then I moved to Virginia when I got, as an adult. And actually, it was the weekend after I moved, the Saturday after I moved or Friday, whatever, that The Phantom Menace opened.
Okay.
So my dad and I had plans, but I moved. So we saw it when he came down to visit a month later. So we saw it, but we've seen them all. We found a little kitschy theater to see Attack of the Clones, and we've found a way.
That's amazing. I love the legacy of it.
Right. When I was 10 years old, he called out of work for Return of the Jedi.
Wow.
1983. I was 10. And we went and sat outside our local movie theater looking in the newspaper, because that's how you found movie time.
Sure.
Right. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. So it's the dark days. And we're looking through the paper, seeing what time our little local crappy movie theater opened. And he's like, ooh, Revere. I'll never forget the theater. Revere has a 70 millimeter Dolby screen.
Ooh.
And it starts at noon instead of 1. Because there was no midnight crap. It was just
True.
Whenever they got up and opened the theater. So if we left, I think it was 10:30, we're there super early. We could still get to Revere and get to the theater well before it opened. It turned out we were first.
Yeah.
We got in line, and then right behind us was another family another dad and daughter with our same last name. So we sat with them. I know, how weird was that? We sat with them. It was great. I was sad it was over.
That's so amazing, though. What a great kind of memory set to pull from and just have with you the whole time. So before we delve into the movie itself, as always, I grab a whole bunch of trivia from IMDb. There is so much for this movie. I'm sure you know some of it. I had to be very selective about which ones I pulled because there is so much. So I didn't want to make that be the whole show. But originally, as most people know, this movie was to be titled Revenge of the Jedi. But producers thought the Jedi wouldn't seek revenge due to their ethical code. Some posters and theater stand-ups were made early, but then quickly pulled when the title changed. So you can still find them out there, but it was a lot harder too.
Yeah.
Fake scripts were distributed to some cast members that were considered likely to leak information to the media. Some of these phony story elements were indeed leaked as expected, such as Lando being revealed as the quote-unquote last hope for the Jedi mentioned by Obi-Wan and Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Who would think that would make sense?
I don't know, but it'd be funny to see the headlines, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher complained about her costumes in the previous 2 movies. She said they were so long, you could not tell that she was a woman. These complaints led to the skimpy outfit she wore as Jabba's slave. The costume became something of a running joke among the crew because the metal framework that held the top together meant that the costume didn't move well with her. Since Fisher didn't like the industry standard solution of using double-sided tape, it became necessary before each take to have a wardrobe person check to ensure that her breasts were still snug inside the costume top, and several scenes had to be reshot when wardrobe malfunctions occurred.
So, funny story.
Yeah.
During St. Jude, I jokingly said, if someone donates a certain amount of money, I'll dress up like Slave Leia. Ha 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 ha. It took under 10 minutes for someone to donate that amount. So I just got home from a con, from Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia, and where I donned that very metal bikini that I always swore was the only costume from Star Wars I would never do. And ironically, it's the first Leia costume I've finished, because I have a boosh. I call it my boosh in a box, which I've never finished. But first one I've ever finished. And that thing is uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm sure. No doubt.
Yeah, I don't know how she would fall out of it, because there was no, maybe I tied it on very tightly. Because you just tie it on. I did also have if everything fell off, there was no way you're still seeing anything. There was things stuck to me, but I didn't have any double-sided tape. But I can see how that could be a thing. It's not a very, it was a windy day. There was a lot of stress, but we did a photo shoot with a whole bunch of us. It was delightful.
That's amazing.
A very empowering costume. We've renamed it Hut Slayer Leia.
Nice.
Because it's more appropriate.
True. Speaking of the hut, Jabba's sail barge was filmed in Yuma, Arizona. The film crew had problems avoiding the 35,000 dune buggy enthusiasts in the area. To preserve secrecy, the producers claimed to be making a horror movie called Blue Harvest, as people know, with the tagline Horror Beyond Imagination, and even had caps and t-shirts made up for the crew. This was also done so that vendors wouldn't overcharge them because they were working on the next Star Wars movie. To this day, if you visit blueharvest.com, it redirects to the official Star Wars website.
That is hilarious.
I love that.
I do too. I mean, I knew Blue Harvest, but as you hear me type.
Yeah, it works.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
It's a fun little thing. Try it at home, folks.
The more you know.
A couple pieces of sound trivia. The slithery noises made when Jabba the Hutt moves were created by sound man Ben Burt running his hands through a cheese casserole. Oh! Why
I would never see some of the things those sound guys do.
Yeah.
Never.
Foley artists are amazing. And the speeder bike pass-by sound effects were done by splicing together thunder sounds with those of a P-38 airplane. Ooh. I always wonder, who goes, I want this to kind of sound like this, but slightly different, and...
Can you add some cheese to that?
Always a little bit of cheese to every sound.
Right. From now on, yes.
Be like, I don't like the sound of cheddar. How about some mozzarella? Let's see if that plays differently.
Some Gruyere casserole. Has a meteor sound.
Admiral Akbar's famous line, "It's a trap," was originally scripted as "It's a trick." The line was changed in post-production after a negative test screening. Who would be like, that one line bugged me?
You know what? Someone from the future.
It's true.
Well, yes, someone, but also it's right. Someone's like, no, the meme must flow.
The point of view shots for the speeder bike sequence were achieved by having a camera operator walk through the forest at normal speed with a camera filming at 1 frame per second. When the footage was played back at 24 frames per second, it gave the appearance of flying through the forest at high speeds. And
that's the Redwoods, right?
Yeah.
In San Francisco. Which I always forget until I watch Parks and Rec, and Ben's like, whoa, we're in Endor.
We're the Ewoks. Speaking of, man, these natural transitions you're handing me. The word Ewok is never spoken in the movie, nor are the individuals Wicket, Poplu, etc. referred to by name. Originally, the Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees, but the decision to change to shorter creatures was made in pre-production, so the Ewoks were created. And the word itself kind of sounds like Wookiee or is made up of the same letters.
Right. It's like a shorter Wookiee.
Yeah. Even in linguistics.
So funny story about Ewoks.
Yeah.
It seems to be like I cosplayed for this podcast. There was a group of us at DragonCon, and I'm downloading the photo so I can send it to you, who cosplayed as sexy Ewoks.
What?
We all got different colors of fun fur.
Oh, wow.
And someone sculpted the masks, and it's terrifying nightmare fuel, yet amazing all at once. And we got like a professional, because there's so many of us in this group. We got a professional photo taken of us because the guy knew us.
Sure.
Or knew someone in the group. So there you go for your horrifying pleasure.
We'll bombard the listeners with that.
Mm-hmm.
While filming on location for the Endor scenes, Peter Mayhew was escorted by crew members so that hunters would not mistake him for Bigfoot.
Yikes.
Yeah.
He's a tall dude. Have you ever seen him?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yeah, he's a tall man.
We're Facebook friends.
Oh.
Yes. He friended a bunch of 501st people like 10 years ago, and I'm like, I'm holding on to it.
Hold on to it. Yeah, I've got some people locked in that I haven't noticed I'm still there. I'll take it. Yeah. Before filming began, it was discovered that all of Darth Vader's lightsaber props had either been lost or stolen. Thus, one of Luke Skywalker's stunt saber props from The Empire Strikes Back had to be quickly cannibalized into a Vader-esque saber for this film.
Ooh.
Originally, the color of Luke's new lightsaber was blue, the same as the one he lost in Empire. Luke can even be seen wielding a blue lightsaber in early trailers. However, when a scene of Luke assembling and activating his new saber, still blue, was cut, George Lucas thought the audience might not understand that Luke's new lightsaber was not the exact same one he lost on Cloud City. To avoid confusion, Lucas decided to change the color from blue to green, making it clear that Luke was using a new saber. So that's the only reason. That always was not something that bugged me as a kid, but I was always like, why? Why did his saber change? Because there's no storyline reason for it.
Right. Well, there's never any explanation about why people have different color lightsaber.
No.
I mean, Mace Windu's was purple because Samuel L. Jackson was like, I want a purple lightsaber. Yeah. And they said, well, it's Samuel L. Jackson. We should probably say yes.
Yeah, that's how they got him to do the movie. That's the only reason. There's no like canonical story reason.
Let's be fair, though. If they said no, he'd still be like, but must still be a Jedi, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
When Darth Vader picks up the Emperor and throws him down the Death Star shaft, it's the only time the Jedi theme music plays over a shot of Vader, reflecting his return to the light side of the Force.
Be right back. I have to go watch this scene again. Look at that.
We got to give people this trivia before they watch it, apparently.
Right? Yeah. Or, it makes them dig back into it.
Leia was never intended to be Luke's sister. What? When A New Hope was released, the sequel trilogy to this was supposed to follow Luke's twin sister, Nelith Skywalker. Originally, this movie would have ended with Luke defeating Vader and embarking on the search for Nelith. Because of the enormous toll Empire and Jedi took on George Lucas's health and personal life, he opted to end the series here by making Leia into Luke's sister. That
part I didn't know. That's really interesting. You have to wonder, like, what would have happened had he gone forward with that. I mean, I know that there's a lot of flack out there for the new trilogy, and I won't even touch that. But can you imagine how boring that movie would be?
Searching for his sister?
Right? It's like, is she on Dagobah? No. How about Tatooine? No. Naboo? Oh, wait, you guys are all cleaning up from that war I helped start? I'll be back later. I'm searching. How terrible would that be? Then you got Han and Leia over here like, you got to help? And he's like, I don't know you people anymore. Goodbye. There's no connection to them.
It would be really interesting. I'm curious just to see like the scripts, if they were ever rendered, or even just an outline of that story.
Right. I mean, I grew up knowing that it was a 9-story trilogy. Mm-hmm. Like it was 3 different trilogies, a trilogy of trilogies.
Right.
Anyway. And I remember people were so angry that it didn't look like they were ever coming out.
2 more pieces. I have a bad feeling about this. That famous quote that exists in all Star Wars movies is heard on 2 occasions in this movie. C-3PO says it to R2-D2 when entering Jabba's palace, and Han says it after the Ewoks start preparations to roast him.
There you go.
And of course, we like to point out the Wilhelm scream whenever we hear it. Can be heard as Luke slashes an enemy with his lightsaber and he falls into the Sarlacc pit. Another can be heard by an Ewok that is killed while taking cover from the Imperial Walker's turret fire.
Didn't know about the Ewok. I did know about the dude.
Gotta love the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere. All right, let's get into the movie. So we start out by seeing the Death Star, the reveal of the new Death Star, and this one is only partially completed, and Darth Vader is arriving on it.
Well, and I will say, as a child watching, I didn't understand that it was much bigger than the first one until they literally said, hey, this is much bigger than the first one.
Yeah, because where's the sense of scale?
Right, there's none. But that whole opening scene was just like, they just drop you right in.
Mm-hmm.
We shall double our efforts. Yes, you will. Dude, get on it.
They basically say it's every line of exposition to let you know that this is bigger and badder and needs to be a sequel.
Right, exactly. Like, everything's more serious. We're bringing the big guy here.
Yeah.
I'm here right away and pissed off. I haven't even choked you. I'm so mad at you. Like,
we go to Tatooine and Jabba's palace, which is arguably one of my favorite parts of the movie. Everything that takes place on Tatooine. 3PO and R2 arrive at Jabba's palace on Tatooine to deliver a message from Luke, where they find Han frozen in carbonite on Jabba's wall. Which is interesting because when we talked about Empire, there was hesitation as to whether or not Harrison Ford would return for Jedi. So they put him in the carbonite as like, okay, well, we're not going to kill him, but we're going to take him off the board if we need to, and this is how we're going to do it.
Makes sense. So watching that scene too, and I don't know if you're going to go further into it, but there's always the special edition versus
God
discussion. Yep. I know. And it's funny because I forgive a lot of the special edition for something that we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
I think the worst moment of that movie from a special edition point of view is that damn song.
So agree.
I was so impressed that they brought what's-her-name back as the dancer, and she was like 30 years older and looked perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they ruined the scene by like close-ups of the CGI weird dude's mouth.
Yeah.
And like is it Snice Noodles? Like her lip, is it her?
I believe so.
Max Rebo's the blue guy, but when her lips like close up to the camera, I'm like, are you Lucas? What?
Well, that was also intended for the 3D showing, those like lips moving out. So now you watch it back and it just looks ridiculous because we're not watching in 3D. So that was clearly aimed at that, and it's so abrasive in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It really is, and I wish I could. Oh, I just wish someone would find the canister like this. I got it. I found it.
During part of this too, when they have all the droids, I was just thinking, do droids actually feel pain, or are they just programmed to react as if they do? Because you see the one getting its feet branded, right, and it's making noises, as is the protocol droid being torn apart. They're both like whining and complaining or like screaming in pain, but they're droids. So
it's interesting, right? Because droids are not robots,
mm-hmm,
right? And it's sort of short for androids. Or androids grew out of it, right? So I've always felt as if there might be a quiet sentience in the droids of the Star Wars universe that was never explored, even if it's not, like, this is my headcanon, right?
That's
like,
fine.
I don't think
I'm into it.
Right? They're not all super alive, like, what's going on? I want to have babies.
Yeah.
But I think, like, have you read the Star Wars comics at all?
I have not.
Spoiler, full spoiler. Oh, I have a red arm now, right? In Force Awakens. There's a C-3PO one-shot comic that explains that.
Okay.
And it is the only Star Wars comic book that has ever made me cry. And I wept at the end of this comic. And it's all full of robots. Like, it's none of them are living. And it's so heart-wrenching. It's such a I highly recommend. All of the Star Wars titles currently are pretty much hitting out of the park. Ironically, not the Leia one, which I was really disappointed about. The Chewie one was kind of lame too. But on the whole, they're all much better than the Dark Horse ones ever were, and they're canon, which is great. But that one, it really kind of opened the door to do androids dream of electric sheep and all that stuff.
Interesting. Well, yeah, they clearly have like different levels of evolution. There's the comment about R2, like, oh, you're a feisty one, aren't you? Like, they all have personalities more so than a robot would.
They do, and they feel remorse,
mm-hmm,
and they feel concern, and they feel sadness. There's something there. Maybe it's not exactly sentience, but it's in between.
Sure. We get the bounty hunter named Bosch arriving with Chewbacca in cuffs. Find out that it's actually Leia in disguise. She frees Han from the carbonite. And of course, they're both captured. Gotta love the special effect of Han being freed from the carbonite. Still as cheesy as ever.
Oh, yeah. They add like 3D lips, but just let's keep this.
Yeah.
Why? That's just an odd choice. But yeah, I love that costume. Ironically, I've seen it in person because there's that Star Wars, the Art of Star Wars costuming, which I actually saw in Denver before I lived here when we came to see if we wanted to move. It was here and we went to see it. And I have a million pictures of that costume because I want to do it. And one of Slave Leia because I was like, I'm not doing that one. But just to have it. So I loved it. I loved that she was such a badass. And I was very lucky to grow up in a really small sliver of a generation that had Wonder Woman, the Bionic Woman, Princess Leia. Like no one told me that women couldn't do everything. And I know that I was in a very lucky time slice there in the 70s where we had a lot of empowering women and then they kind of went away again.
Yeah. I do love how Jabba and his crew are all just kind of like behind a curtain. Like, I like to think it's not where Jabba sleeps or anything. He just gathered up all of his buddies and they're like sitting there for hours just waiting.
Right. And they're just like,
yeah.
The other guy's like Jabba's like elbowing people on the side, like, shut up. They're going to hear us.
It's the best. I mean, obviously it was because Jabba's this massive puppet that they can't be moving everywhere. But I love the idea of the story of it. Just
Did they have snacks?
I mean, I would want snacks. And although everyone's crunching too loud.
Right, they'd have to be only like non-crunchy snacks. Did you bring potato chips again? Friggin' Salacious Crumb?
Yeah.
Leave your Pringles at home, dude.
Once you pop Jabba. Luke arrives and we see Leia in that slave outfit. And we also learn that Luke's mind trick doesn't work on Jabba, which was interesting. I think it was the first time, like we knew that it didn't work on creatures with strong will, but it seems like the Hutts as a race, it doesn't work on, if I recall correctly.
They're related to the whatever Watto was.
Yeah. Luke gets dropped into the pit where he fights and disposes of the Rancor. The edits make a lot more sense now, watching it now than when I did as a kid. Like you'd never see the Rancor's hand wrapping around Luke, or Luke actually putting the bone in its mouth because those effects would have been too much. So you just see like the hand reach towards Luke and then a cut and then he's got him like in his hand already because they didn't want to make the fingers wrap around.
Right. And I never, like your mind inserts those parts.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't notice them when you're little.
Oh no. When you just said that, I had to think about it for a second. Like, did they actually? Yeah, no.
I'm glad that they didn't reanimate the Rancor at all, though, because that would have. I know it's stop motion. Some people think it's corny, but it holds up.
It much better than I prefer that any day over the singing scene.
Totally. Luke and Han are taken out to the Sarlacc pit when R2 fires Luke's lightsaber to him and a battle ensues. The flip up of Luke like grabbing the diving board, as I call it, and like doing the flip up and grabbing the lightsaber is maybe one of my favorite moments in the entire original trilogy. I love that so much.
When it like gives the salute. Oh
yeah.
I remember being like, I don't know if I clapped, but I felt like I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of internal celebration going on in that part. The great thing with Han going, Boba Fett, where? Very Indiana Jones moment in the middle of a Star Wars movie. Leia gets to be a badass by not only choking out Jabba, but also operating the gun turret.
It's funny, somebody actually discussed that with me on stream when I was making your costume. They're like, how did Leia actually, like, she's not strong enough to choke someone out. I'm like, au contraire. Let's discuss the physics of this. Yeah. And we did. We went through it. I'm like, she's behind him.
Yep.
Right? She wraps it around his neck at least once, and she's yanking, and she's got leverage, and he can't move.
Yeah.
Although, to the person who said it's credit, I don't know that it's not that she's not strong enough, but where's his thorax in that?
I was going to say, we don't know Hutt anatomy. Maybe it's like right on the surface, too. It's helping her out a little bit. Who knows?
Right?
Back on the Death Star, the Emperor arrives and insists that Luke will seek them out, at which time they will try to turn him. Luke returns to Dagobah to find Yoda in a weak state, close to death. Yoda confirms that Vader is his father, but just before he dies, he tells Luke that there is another Skywalker.
That scene bothers me because I feel like, I'm like, Frank, can we have a discussion here about like some dramatic pacing? Like, I get it. He talks all weird.
Yeah.
But you almost couldn't tell what there was another.
Yeah.
Like, I get it that he's trying to say it in his last breath, but say it in your last breath.
It trailed off a whole bunch. Even the audio
Yeah.
people should have boosted it just a little bit.
Right?
But like, what are you saying? Do you want me to go to an amusement park? Sky Ranch is like...
Right. There's another Sky show.
Oh, Sky Network? There's something on the Sky Network? Okay. Obi-Wan appears to Luke as a Force ghost and tells him he has a twin sister, which Luke correctly guesses is Leia. So not a lot of weight on the turnaround time on that.
No, yeah, that's like,
Yep.
what?
Like, Yoda, why didn't you just say it? Like, we found out within 5 minutes after you died.
Right, like it wasn't, there's not even any pause.
No.
Like, Leia, like, do I win anything? I felt like it was a game show almost.
Da 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 da.
Right, exactly. You've won a new car. So there's no surprise in him. And again, if you read, and I feel like at the time, Splinter of the Mind's Eye was still kind of in the zeitgeist as canon.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he wasn't feeling any of that stuff on that weird planet.
On that weird planet.
Have you ever read Splinter of the Mind's
I
Eye?
have not.
Okay, read like a Cliff Notes version or the Wikipedia article. Do not torture yourself with this book. I have like a first edition. Like I bought it I read it as a child when it was new, and I was between the movies. I think I was like, so I was 10 when it came out, 7. Probably I was an early reader, so I was probably like 7.
Okay.
Maybe I read it the other ones, but before I saw Jedi, I know I read it for sure, and it's El Terrible. It's not good. And he's just, the whole book is almost like a romantic comedy, like a Sweet Valley High, but like he's just in love with Leia the whole time. And we need to do this mission.
Oh.
And then, Vader shows up for no reason. And you're like, what?
Huh.
And they all, like, everybody's escapade. And you're like, why? Hold up.
They got a little too freeform playing with the toys.
It was, yes. Like, who approved this?
We find out that the Rebel Alliance meets to form their plan to take down the new Death Star. They must land on the Force moon of Endor and destroy a shield generator, to which we jump to Endor, which is another one of the great parts of the movie. The team arrives on Endor, where Luke and Leia end up pursuing some troopers on speeder bikes. Always love the speeder bike stuff. Always. It was just, I don't know what it was about them. Was it the fact that they were going so fast? The fact that no one can control these? Let's be real. They're ridiculously fast and they handle terribly. Who's riding on these safely?
I would 10 out of 10 check one out and ride it as long as someone would let me. That's my first 501st costume.
Yeah.
Is a biker scout. I'm a TK
Nice.
Because not only is it the coolest costume, but you can sit.
Huge advantage.
Unlike the stormtroopers, and you can flip your visor up.
Perfect.
Which they don't do in the movie, but hey, when in Rome, if you can do it, do it.
Separated from Luke, Leia befriends an Ewok named Wicket, played by Warwick Davis. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is captured by Ewoks who plan to sacrifice them to their new god, C-3PO. Love that bit.
I love that part because he's so kerfluffled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Huh? No, me? No.
Their reactions to him are the best, too.
Yes.
And I love Han and Luke just being like, what the hell's going on right now?
Right, how is this a thing that's occurring right now? Because I don't, what is life?
Luke uses his Force abilities to levitate 3PO, scaring the Ewoks into giving up the sacrifice. And then with 3PO's help, they form an alliance, which is nice. The Ewok Rebel Alliance.
I love this story when he tells the story of Star Wars to the Ewoks.
Yeah.
That to me is probably the most precious moment of that movie, because you see it as an event suddenly larger. Like, we've watched this movie through the eyes of this small band of people, but you hear him telling this story and you realize, like, this is going to be a tale told for generations.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as long as the good guys win.
So long that somebody made a movie out of it.
Right. Right. Or, C-3PO doesn't get his mind wiped again and he can just tell people.
Yeah. Luke confesses to Leia that he is her brother, that Vader is their father, and he must face him. Good scene. A little over dramatic afterwards when I'm thinking ahead of another part. I'm thinking of the part where Leia tells Han that Luke's her brother, and it's so over dramatic.
What? That's your direction? I mean, come on.
Luke turns himself over to Vader, who I always forget this part because it's so fast, but There is that great exchange in which we really see the conflict within Vader for kind of the first time and see him as like more of a complex human instead of just the like one note bad guy.
It's true.
And Luke Hamill crushes that scene too. Like,
oh yeah,
he's fantastic in that.
Jedi, the end of Jedi, and I would be interested to see what their filming order was, because I feel as if he actually grew as an actor in that movie.
Oh, totally.
Unlike the other ones, like I feel like he was weirdly the best in the first, right? And I feel like in Empire he'd gotten kind of like I'm an actor now, but Jedi it was very up and down, but it ended in way up, like where I feel like by the end he had established himself, like I'm actually not a bad dude.
Yeah, he felt really centered the whole time, at least near the end, and maybe that was part of the performance, or it was just him as an actor kind of being like more comfortable in it and everything. Tons of stuff kind of jumping back and forth between the Death Star and Endor here, so I'm not going to always clarify, but Vader takes Luke to the Emperor, who informs him that his friends on Endor are walking into a trap, to which the rebels are ambushed by a legion of Imperial troops, while the rebel fleet realizes what they've stumbled into. Back on Endor, the Ewoks launch a counterattack, freeing the rebel forces. The battle here, I love the battle here. This is what a lot of people tease Jedi for. The Ewoks kind of ridiculously overpowering the Imperial troops here. And they're like, oh, there's a bunch of Muppets in this movie and all that stuff. And I don't know. I think they got some weird, like, serious depth in the Ewoks. There's like that one shot where you see the dead Ewok. And it goes from lighthearted action to like this one Ewok grieving over another. I'm like, whoa, tonal shift just like that.
You didn't even have to tell me what scene you're talking about. I knew it immediately because it's another one of those moments in the movie where it doesn't take you out, it takes you in. Like it pulls you further in, like, oh my gosh, like they've been adorable and almost comedy, but they're dying for a cause that is not necessarily entirely their own. Like they could probably live in peace with this one little installation on their planet, and like leave it be. They're not, an English speaking species. The Empire's probably gonna leave them alone. They can't really work real hard for them, right? They're in a pretty safe position and they risk their butt for this crazy band of rebels with a giant golden god.
It's not the only time this movie does that either. There's the part earlier with the Rancor when the Rancor is killed and his trainer comes in, or his handler or whatever, and he's sad. And you're like, oh, wait, somebody was like actually cared about this creature.
He's devastated. Yeah. Like this, he's sobbing. Like he's and he was so, like, they portray him, like when you see him in the background, he's a tough guy. He's like, ha ha ha. And it's, I really like that they went there, right? Like he wasn't just like mad and kicking dirt. He was genuinely upset. Yeah. And because he had a depth of caring for this creature, regardless of its nature or job.
Yeah, there's a whole crazy, I looked him up just to see. There's a ridiculous backstory as to like how he came to be with that particular Rancor and everything. Like it saved him at some point, and now there's like a whole friendship over the years. And yeah, and it's crazy. It like really makes that scene really heavy. Yeah. Yeah. The Emperor reveals that the Death Star is fully operational and destroys a rebel star cruiser. Luke grabs his saber and swings at the Emperor, but Vader interrupts him, leading to the final conflict between father and son. Vader learns of Luke's sister by reading his mind during the battle, and Luke erupts with rage, severing Vader's hand. As the Emperor taunts him, Luke sees the connection between his father's now missing hand and his own robotic one. This part made me feel so smart when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, the hand. Like I was discovering this hidden secret within the movie or something.
Like, do you get it, Dad? You understood. Yeah. I'm with you. And I almost think that was intentional because, I mean, Lucas always, off the cuff says these are movies for kids, but I mean, he's not really fooling anyone with that. That's like saying Doctor Who is for kids, which I believe, but not entirely, right? Like it's made with kids in mind.
Yeah, but there's so much like other level stuff.
Yeah, and it's not even like Phineas and Ferb level where you're like, oh look, I found that funny too. It has an element of kids can watch this because it's not overtly violent, very profane, but it speaks to people on a human level from a choice and a black, white, and gray point of view, right? And like the 501st, we always joke that like evil is just, that's your point of view. Or as the guy dressed up like the dude Jedi at DragonCon said, that's just like your opinion, man. But it's a pretty deep movie when you get to the parts that, and I feel bad saying this, but that Lucas didn't mess up. Lucas is a world builder. He's not a storyteller.
Agreed.
He creates ginormous, great like boundaries and backstories and like sets the pieces on the board. And then he needs to walk away. Right? You have like your Lawrence, is it Kasdan?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have him. He can move those pieces brilliantly. I even like JJ's vision.
Same.
Ryan, I don't think I think the history will be kinder to him than we are all right now.
Sure.
As they were to Lawrence, right? Again, Empire wasn't like this lauded movie like it is now, where it's the favorite. But yeah, that ending scene with the Emperor and Vader, I thought, and Luke was very, very well done. And there is so much potential to mess that up that I thought that they really handled it well.
Yeah, completely. Realizing that Luke won't turn, the Emperor torches Luke with Force lightning, attempting to kill him. Not wanting to see his son die, Vader grabs the Emperor and throws him down the reactor shaft to his death. I'm glad they didn't mess with the effects too much on that either, because it looks awesome. It still does. The battle on Endor finally turns in favor of the rebels, who successfully destroy the shield generator. In his efforts, the lightning had channeled through Vader's body, both causing fatal injuries and damaging his breathing apparatus. So then we get the heartbreaking end of Vader's story. Vader asks Luke to remove his mask so he can look at him with his human eyes. Luke does so, and Anakin tells Luke that he was right about him, and shortly after, dies.
Dun, dun, dun.
As people do like crap on the prequel trilogy, and I have on occasion too, I've never been like, they're terrible, and I hate them. But I don't know, there was something, I didn't need Anakin's backstory. And even watching it now, it doesn't add anything. And maybe that's the problem with them, is watching Vader's death as Anakin here. I don't even relate that character to the one that I watched in the prequels.
So I've tried really hard to relate it to the one in the prequels, because I don't necessarily disagree with you there. I'm famous for saying I have never seen a Star Wars movie that I didn't like, right? Like, I might not have loved it, but they're all, I have genuinely enjoyed watching them all for one reason or another. I think they focused on the wrong half of the Anakin Padme relationship in those movies, and it really made me sad when you saw a lot of what was on the cutting room floor for Clones and Revenge. Padme was such a much more rounded character, so brilliant, so politically minded, so like she's really the heart of the rebellion. And I think had they spent so much of the original trilogy on Luke and Vader. If they had really shown Padme as this mother of the resistance, her and Bail Organa, it so much more would have made sense. And I think I like to think that's my headcanon. That's in there somewhere, right? Like, they just didn't show it to us. And I think that had they focused less on Anakin in the prequels, that I might have cared more about Vader's death in Return of the Jedi, because they gave us too much of Anakin.
Agreed.
Right? They defined him in a way that was too specific for someone who is such a shell of a man without, I mean, he has no personality. Yeah. He kills, he's cranky, he executes the will of the Emperor. And it's not till the end of the second movie, that you realize that he had, he was something before this. Yeah. And I feel like they did that moment a disservice by making Anakin who he was in the movies. I often say, just give me 10 minutes and I'll rewrite those movies and make them like so much better. Because there's little tweaks that they can do that would improve it. But I feel like I can headcanon my way to caring and seeing the guy that he ended up in Revenge of the Sith as to the guy he died as.
Agreed.
I feel like Rogue One actually helps bridge that gap, because it kind of shows him as like almost like a mix of the two Vaders, right? Like the stoic, I'm just going to kill, I don't give a crap what you think about my faith, I'm just going to choke you till you shut up, versus, like, I am the high ground now. How do you get from there to there in 19 years?
Yeah.
And I feel like showing Vader's, how out of control he is in Rogue One at the end of it, like frenetically trying to get that card and not caring about damage or destruction.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense too when he boards the Tantive 4 at the beginning of Star Wars. Have you watched them?
In
like the very end of Rogue One and the very start of New Hope?
I have not.
Oh my God, do it.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Because it's almost as if he's gained a little bit of composure when he walks on, and he's still mad, but he's like, let's talk.
That's interesting.
Figure out what happened. Yeah, so I think that by watching them closer together and piecing it together with the newer comics, it helps bring the two Vaders together.
Okay.
Because it's hard to mourn one and think of the other.
It is. It really is.
For sure. That's a weird tangent, but I brought it back.
No, absolutely. We get Lando leading Wedge and his fighter group into the interior of the Death Star. They fire at the main reactor. Everything goes boom. And then back on Endor, Luke is seen igniting the funeral pyre and burning his father's body. Leia finally tells Han that Luke is her brother, the scene that we referenced earlier, to which he's relieved as he felt like Luke was still competition this entire time. Han is, for being like the rugged, I don't give a crap about anything, Han was like the most jealous guy ever throughout all of this.
He's very insecure.
Lastly, the rebels celebrate their victory with the Ewoks, who sing the wonderful, never replaced Yub Nub song. And Luke,
we're going to have a fight about this in a second.
Oh, and Luke sees the Force ghosts of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and the redeemed Anakin Skywalker, who they also should not have replaced.
I'm with you there. Don't. He's old. He died old.
Yes.
Let him be old.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he redeemed himself before he died. So there's the argument that, well, this is the last time he was good. He was seen like this. We're like, nope.
Right. He was good right before he died.
Exactly.
I feel like that was like, I'm really sorry, Hayden Christensen, that we ruined your career here.
Apparently, Hayden Christensen didn't know what he was filming that for either. Nobody told him what that was, so he didn't know how to act it, and that's why he looks so awkward. He's like, he saw it in the movie, he was like, oh, I didn't know that's what they were doing with it.
Oh my God, that poor guy.
Yeah.
So I will tell you, as a 10-year-old girl watching the end of Return of the Jedi, I love the Yub Nub song.
Great.
Don't I have a patch up on my wall over here that's an Ewok saying Yub Nub. Loved it. But at the end of the movie, when the credits rolled, I looked at my dad, and the first thing I said is, that's it. They had a movie that would flip-flop between huge galactic presence and small intimate scenes. And they ended with only one of those.
True.
So to me, and I'll be completely honest, I cried like a baby when I saw the special edition at the end of that movie because I felt like it was redemption for me. I felt like it felt bigger than it was. It felt as big as it was supposed to be. This was an amazing moment for not just this small group of fighters, but for all the people that they had been fighting for, these nameless, faceless people that they had claimed to care so much about.
Yeah.
We're so rarely represented in the movie. And I understand that, but I felt like in that moment, that was a time to include a larger celebration. So I am isn't there an edition where they play both songs?
I do not know, actually. I agree with you on the fact that seeing the celebrations around the galaxy is absolutely wonderful. I love that. The first time I watched it, though, and the Yub Nub didn't happen, it was jarring. Because
it was jarring.
Because we've seen it and we know it, so we know it a certain way. So when it doesn't flow that same way, and all of a sudden it's like a crowbar stuck there and just going, even though like I love the scenes, I just want the music that I know. I
feel like they, again, with my minor tweaks to the Star Wars movies, I feel like what might have worked best is if they had cut to all of the scenes in the galaxy and played that song and then folded into the song that we know and the would have totally worked, because it's like, look at this big celebration, and now look, here's a group of people who really made it happen, and it's this small intimate, because that's really what it is at the end of the day. Even though all these people did this stuff, these are the people who affected change, who may never, we know their story, but their story may never be known to the wider galaxy. And except for how many people 3PO can say it too. That's it. Which, considering how much that robot can talk, gee. And that is that's Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Before I end it, I do want to give you an opportunity to plug your things so that people can check you out on the internet and see the stuff you do. I don't do things. You don't do things? No, I don't do things. No, I have been sewing almost all my life. I sew live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Imperialgrrl. Big surprise on the name. It's actually my 501st username. if you are a geek, you might have seen something I have sewn before. If you have ever shopped on ThinkGeek, I created the Tauntaun sleeping bag. I created the Necromancer hoodie from designs that were given to me, sketches. I made them reality. And I am on Twitter, pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. I cosplay the aforementioned sexy Ewoks and Princess Leia. We're new this year, but I do cosplay from video games. I've done Symmetra and May to movies, and you name it. I'll probably do it. Dead red shirts, just steampunk Disney princesses. But yeah, so Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all the same name, Imperialgrrl. I would love to meet you. We have a pretty fun community. We like to hang out, meet new friends.
Awesome.
So,
and if people can't find you, we'll link you up in the show notes so people can just click and get right to you. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun. I'm very glad to be involved and included in anything you do, because you're pretty awesome.
Thank you.
And I say it at the end so it doesn't seem like pandering to get on a podcast or anything.
Random Movie Club is a production of the Geek Generation. If you like this show, be sure to check out our podcasts and videos at thegeekgeneration.com, plus our live streams at twitch.tv/thegeekgeneration. Don't forget, you can support Random Movie Club by visiting our Patreon campaign at thegeekgeneration.com/support. As always, thanks to Michael McLeod of Wolf's Music for our theme song. A link to his site can also be found on our site. Thanks for listening, and make sure you join us next time when we'll discuss The Truman Show. See you then.